Welcome back to Digital Dossier, the podcast that delves into the darker side of the digital world. I'm your host, Tom, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a case that's both chilling and really gets you thinking, the story of Brian Cohey Jr. and Warren Barnes. Okay, so imagine this. You're a daycare owner, right, in Colorado. You're a trusted figure in the community. And one day you make a horrifying discovery in your own son's closet. A human head. That's the nightmare that Terry Cohey lived through, and that's where our story begins. Terry's son, Brian Cohey Jr., was a young man who'd been struggling with mental health issues for much of his life. Diagnosed with ADHD at a young age, he later on received diagnoses of autism and major depressive disorder. But as we'll see, these diagnoses, while important to understand, they don't fully explain the darkness that consumed him. This isn't just a story about mental illness. It's about missed warning signs, a mother's denial, and the tragic consequences of unchecked rage. Our journey starts at Terry's toddlers, Terry's in-home daycare, on March 1st, 2021. Parents described Terry as energetic and caring, someone they trusted implicitly with their children.
But on that day, the image of the doting daycare provider was shattered. Terry frantically called all the parents, urging them to pick up their children immediately. Minutes later, a panicked 911 call. Her voice trembling as she described finding something horrifying, something wrapped in plastic in her son Brian's closet. When police arrived at the Cohey residence, they were met with a scene that was both unsettling and perplexing. Brian Sr. and his sons, Brian Jr. and Andy, were standing outside, eerily calm, considering the circumstances. Inside, Terry anxiously watched as officers made their way to Brian Jr.'s room. What they discovered was the stuff of nightmares: a decapitated head and severed hands, concealed beneath a blue towel in the kitchen sink. But this gruesome discovery was just the tip of the iceberg. To truly understand the depths of Brian's depravity, we need to rewind to February of 2021, just weeks before the horrific events at the daycare. It's 3:00 a.m. and police are responding to a report of a car submerged in the Colorado River. When they arrive, they find Terry, trying to maintain her composure, insisting that her son Brian simply had a little accident. Brian, standing there pantless and clearly embarrassed, claimed he'd just parked on a boat ramp to relax and think, and the car must have slipped into the water. A strange explanation, to be sure, but one that might have been dismissed as youthful foolishness had it not been for a chilling detail. As officers worked to retrieve the vehicle, they noticed a significant amount of red liquid dripping from the back. Concerned, they called Terry over and she quickly dialed Brian's number. His response, "Oh, that's just fake blood from a special effects class." Now, any parent might be tempted to believe their child, especially in a stressful situation, but Brian's father wasn't convinced. He decided to search the car himself, and what he found was far more disturbing than fake blood. A stranger's wallet, a large knife, and 3 pairs of vinyl gloves. This seemingly innocent car incident was a red flag, a glimpse into the dark path Brian was already on. But as we'll see, it was just one of many warning signs that went unheeded. Looking back, Brian's life was marked by a series of disturbing behaviors. As a child, he displayed some quirks, like licking his shoes clean. That might have been dismissed as just being different. But at the age of 5, he was diagnosed with ADHD and began taking medication, which seemed to help initially. However, as he entered his teenage years, the concerning behaviors escalated. School counselors noted antisocial tendencies, and by 11th grade, his classmates were expressing fear and discomfort around him. He was subsequently diagnosed with autism and depression, adding to the complexity of his mental health profile. But beyond the clinical diagnoses, there was a growing darkness within Brian. He developed an unhealthy fascination with figures like Adolf Hitler, Eric Harris, and Ted Bundy. He would check out books on serial killers and school shootings from the library, raising concerns among teachers who repeatedly flagged him as deeply troubled. His online activity painted an even more alarming picture. Brian kept a sort of diary on Reddit, filled with violent fantasies, thoughts of harming his classmates, and disturbing accounts of experimenting with weapons. Despite these glaring red flags, Brian's mother, Terry, seemed to be in a perpetual state of denial. She consistently downplayed his actions, rationalizing them away as harmless expressions of a unique personality. When Brian brought nunchucks to school, she dismissed the concerns. And when he assembled what he called a kill kit, containing hammers, shovels, knives, zip ties, duct tape, and a saw, she brushed it off as a waste of $100 when he eventually discarded it. It's almost unfathomable how a parent could ignore such alarming behavior, but Terry's denial went even deeper. Brian later admitted to intentionally triggering a classmate's PTSD just to see what would happen. He viewed people as test subjects in his own twisted experiments, and his mother seemed oblivious, or perhaps unwilling to acknowledge the danger he posed. Brian's dark sense of humor and violent fantasies added another layer of concern. He would make jokes about putting pets through a meat grinder and fantasize about war crimes and torture. It was a disturbing blend of fascination and detachment that should have set off alarm bells. In a misguided attempt to redirect his morbid curiosity, Terry bought Brian a book called Techniques of a Crime Scene Investigator. It's hard to imagine a more inappropriate gift for a young man already exhibiting such disturbing tendencies. And then there was the animal cruelty. Brian confessed to torturing animals, chillingly admitting that while killing a cat, the thought crossed his mind, I was thinking about killing people. This wasn't just a phase. This was a clear escalation of his violent urges, a sign that the line between fantasy and reality was blurring, dangerously. In the week leading up to the murder, Brian's online searches took an even more sinister turn. He researched paranoia, personality disorders, knife attacks, and how to suppress homicidal urges. He was actively seeking information that would help him plan and execute his dark desires. On February 27, 2021, after watching the film 1984 with his family, Brian left the house consumed by a violent urge. Under a bridge, he found Warren Barnes, a 69-year-old homeless man wrapped in canvas sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the danger that was about to engulf him. Brian attacked Warren, stabbing him in the neck while making animalistic growls. Later, he would confess, I wanted to do this for so long. As he stood over Warren's body, a single phrase kept repeating in his mind, stinky dirty. What followed was a scene of unimaginable brutality. Brian mutilated Warren's body, removing his head and hands and placing them in bags. He then attempted to dump the rest of the body in the river, but in a cruel twist of fate, his car got stuck, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to his downfall. Remember that incident where Brian drove his car into the river? Well, he called his parents, claiming it was an accident, but the blood on the car's bumper raised suspicions. It was only a matter of time before the truth unraveled. Back at the house, Terry stumbled upon the horrifying truth hidden in her son's closet, the severed head. Police arrived, and Brian confessed without hesitation, saying, I murdered him with a knife. I wanted to know what it felt like. His confession was chillingly casual. During interrogation, he described the killing in disturbing detail, even demonstrating the stabbing motion. He showed no remorse, no empathy for the life he had taken. His only concern seemed to be getting caught and missing his video games. Now, who was Warren Barnes, the man whose life Brian so callously took? Warren was a quiet, kind-hearted man who never bothered anyone. He'd feed birds half his sandwich and enjoyed reading Western novels at a local boutique. He was part of the community, a human being with a life and a story, reduced to an object in Brian's twisted game. The town was devastated by Warren's murder. Monique, the owner of the boutique where Warren would often spend his days, placed his favorite chair outside as a tribute. It was a simple but powerful symbol of the life that had been stolen. Brian Cohey Jr. was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. As he was being led away, Terry cried out, I'll visit you as soon as I can, baby. Her words sent chills down everyone's spines, revealing a disturbing level of denial and a complete lack of understanding of the gravity of her son's crime. In front of the boutique, a metal replica of Warren's chair now stands as a permanent memorial, a reminder of the man who was loved and is deeply missed. Brian, the perpetrator of this horrific act, will likely fade from memory, but Warren's story will live on, a stark reminder of the consequences of ignoring red flags and the importance of compassion and community. Brian targeted someone he assumed wouldn't be missed, but Warren was missed, deeply. This case raises many difficult questions about mental health, accountability, and the potential for intervention before tragedy strikes. It underscores the importance of recognizing and addressing warning signs, not just for the sake of the individual, but for the safety and well-being of our communities. Warren's memory lives on, while Brian will likely be forgotten. But the lessons we can learn from this tragedy should stay with us. Compassion matters. Community matters. And ignoring red flags can be deadly. Warren's murder, it sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone, grasping for answers. How could a young man from a seemingly average family commit such a brutal act? Was there something, anything, that could have been done to prevent this tragedy? These questions, unsettling as they are, kind of force us to confront a difficult truth. Violent tendencies, they can emerge in anyone, regardless of background or social standing. It's tempting to just label Brian Cohey Jr. a monster, to distance ourselves from the darkness he embodied. But doing so ignores the nuances of this case and the valuable lessons it holds. Mental health, societal pressures, a culture that often glorifies violence. These elements swirl together, creating a dangerous cocktail that can lead individuals down a dark path. Brian's story serves as a stark reminder that we can't afford to ignore the warning signs, the disturbing behavior, the fascination with violence, the cruelty towards animals. These weren't isolated incidents. They were pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, revealed a troubled mind, spiraling towards a horrifying outcome. The role of social media in this case is particularly disturbing. Brian's online presence became a breeding ground for his violent fantasies. He sought validation and encouragement in the darkest corners of the internet, finding a community that fueled his disturbing thoughts instead of challenging them. This raises a crucial question. What responsibility do social media platforms have in monitoring and addressing content that glorifies violence and hatred? While freedom of speech is a fundamental right, we need to strike a balance between protecting that right and preventing the spread of harmful ideologies that can have devastating real-world consequences. The case of Brian Cohey Jr. also underscores the crucial role of family and community in identifying and addressing mental health issues. While we can't always prevent tragedy, we can strive to create a more supportive environment where individuals, feel comfortable seeking help and where warning signs aren't ignored or dismissed. It's easy to point fingers at Terry, Brian's mother, for her denial and her failure to intervene, but her story is a reminder that parents, even those with the best intentions, can struggle to understand and accept the gravity of their children's mental health challenges. The stigma surrounding mental illness often discourages individuals from seeking help, and the fear of judgment can lead parents to, downplay or rationalize their children's disturbing behavior. We need to cultivate a culture where mental health is treated with the same urgency and compassion as physical health, a culture where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength, not weakness. The tragic case of Brian Cohey Jr. and Warren Barnes, it reminds us that evil can lurk in unexpected places. It's a wake-up call that compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our society. It forces us to ask difficult questions about the factors that contribute to violence and to search for ways to create a safer, more compassionate world where tragedies like this become less frequent, not more. But even amidst the darkness, there are glimmers of hope. The community's outpouring of support for Warren Barnes and his family is a testament to the enduring power of human connection. The memorial erected in his honor, it serves as a reminder that even in the face of senseless violence, love and compassion can prevail. Warren's story, though tragically cut short, continues to inspire acts of kindness and generosity. His legacy lives on in the hearts of those who knew him and in the community that continues to honor his memory. The case of Brian Cohey Jr., it's a complex tapestry of mental health struggles, societal pressures, and missed opportunities. It's a story that demands our attention, not just for the sake of understanding the events that unfolded, but for the sake of learning from them and working towards a future where such tragedies are less likely to occur. It's a story that reminds us that we are all interconnected, that our actions have consequences, and that building a safer, more compassionate world requires a collective effort. It's a story that challenges us to confront the darkness within ourselves and our society, to acknowledge the warning signs, and to intervene with compassion and understanding before it's too late. The story of Brian Cohey Jr. and Warren Barnes is a tragedy, but it's also a call to action. It's a call to recognize the humanity in each other, to foster a culture of empathy and support, and to work tirelessly towards a future where violence is not the answer and where every life is valued and cherished. That metal replica of Warren's chair standing there in front of the boutique, it's more than just a memorial, It's a symbol, a powerful one. It represents the life that was taken, but it also speaks volumes about the community that refuses to forget. It's a testament to the idea that even in the face of, unimaginable darkness, there can still be light and hope and resilience. Warren Barnes, he may have been homeless, but he was far from invisible. He was woven into the fabric of that community. A man who, despite facing hardships, found comfort in simple things, like feeding the birds, reading Western novels. His story challenges our preconceived notions about homelessness, reminding us that behind every statistic, there's a human being with a story to tell, a heart that beats, a soul that yearns. It compels us to look beyond the labels, to see the inherent dignity and worth of every individual, regardless of their circumstances. The tragedy of Warren's death, it's amplified by the fact that he was targeted because of his vulnerability. Brian Cohey Jr., he saw him as an easy target, someone whose absence wouldn't cause a stir, someone the world wouldn't miss. But Brian's cold calculation was tragically flawed. Warren was deeply loved and was profoundly missed by his community. His murder serves as a stark reminder that every life has meaning, that every life holds value, and that every act of violence, it sends out ripples of pain and suffering that extend far beyond the immediate victim. The story of Brian Cohey Jr. and Warren Barnes, it's a story of contrasts, darkness and light, loss and remembrance, despair and hope. It's a story that challenges us to face the complexities of human nature, to grapple with the uncomfortable truths about our society, and to strive for a future where compassion and understanding win out over hatred and violence. As we conclude this deep dive into this heartbreaking case, I want to leave you with some questions to ponder. What can we do as individuals and as a community to create a world where tragedies like this are less likely to happen? How can we foster a culture of empathy and support, a culture that values every single life and recognizes the warning signs of potential violence before it's too late? These aren't easy questions to answer, but they are questions worth asking. They demand our attention, our introspection, and our collective action. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of a shocking crime. Remember, even in the face of tragedy, hope has a way of enduring. Let's honor Warren Barnes' memory by working together to build a world where compassion, understanding, and justice prevail. If this episode has resonated with you, please consider sharing it with others. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Digital Dossier for more explorations of true crime stories that matter. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.